the product portfolio here at Opsview. There's a number of areas that I'd like to touch on before ending on a live demo and leaving some time at the end for any questions that you might have. So I'm going to have a quick look at what we understand observability to be. That's something that people have been talking about in the monitoring space for a number of years now. So I'll just briefly touch on that and how log analytics fits into observability. What we believe log management to be and how log analytics can help you with that, and a comparison between monitoring, which you'll be doing already with Opsview Monitor or Opsview Cloud, and adding log analytics alongside that. Looking in a little bit more detail about the log analytics module itself, some use cases, how it can also be used for security information and event management SIEM. Brief overview of the architecture, just at a very high level, a few words on licensing and how that would fit into your existing subscription, and then, as I say, finishing off with a live demo. Please do ask any questions that you have on the way through in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to those at the end. If we don't, then we'll make sure we follow up with you afterwards to get any questions answered. And of course, if you have any questions after today, then do feel free to come back to us and we'll help you with those. So let's have a look at observability. So as I say, a buzzword in monitoring for some years now. So really, that's all about observing systems and optimizing the outputs of it so that we can analyze those and understand what's going on inside, so to be able to make sensible decisions about how we can improve its performance, how we can identify any problems, ideally before they impact on any services being provided. So it's really tuning the outputs that are available, the information streams that are available to us, to make the most of the information. And then it's also about taking those various streams of information, whether it is logs, other monitoring data, metrics, events, etc., bringing those all together in order to correlate and really understand what's going on with those different signals, if you like, between the different sources. So log management specifically is all around collecting the logs, of course, finding different ways to get the information from various different device types, operating systems, and so on, bringing those together into a single store and formatting those appropriately so that we can aggregate, search, correlate, and so on between them. So that's where a lot of the heavy lifting goes on. Collecting the data is pretty straightforward, but then making meaningful sense out of that data is obviously a really key part of the log analytics piece. And then, of course, storing that for the long term so that we can look back and see trends over time, whether that's trends in performance or repeated events, could be security incidents. We can see an increasing or decreasing frequency of different types of event. So keeping that data for a long period of time. So how do we sit alongside that? How does Opsview Log Analytics sit alongside Opsview Monitoring? Well, as you'll all be familiar with using Opsview Monitor on-prem or Opsview Cloud at the moment, the intention is that this gives you complete visibility across your estate in terms of status. So is something up or down? Is it working properly? Collecting the metrics from that so that we can show you current performance and trends over time as well. Of course, scale to tens of thousands of devices. Many of you on the call today, I know, are running systems with thousands or tens of thousands of devices in, so being able to scale efficiently to that size and collect data from a wide range of different sources. Also, integrations into other tools. So a key feature of any monitoring tool should be the strong integrations into other ITOM tooling. So at its simplest, that could be ticketing through ITSM. ServiceNow is used by pretty much all of our customers. I would think 85–90% plus use ServiceNow, at least ITSM, possibly some of the other parts of ServiceNow tooling as well, various automation tools and so on. And providing a role-based access control model as well to separate all this data. So important for all of our customers, whether enterprise or MSP, being able to split up that data and ensure that people can only see and do exactly what they need to and no more within the system. So on the other side, we've got log analytics. which, as we know, of course, is about log file management and other log sources. It's about analysing what's on the network as well. So I'll take some time today to show you a little bit of NetFlow data in there as well. And that's something that you may already be aware we've got in our network analyzer module in Opsview Monitor and Opsview Cloud. But Opsview Log Analytics can offer some extra insight into that as a nice companion tool. It also delves more into security. So the SIEM side of things is something that is a little bit more difficult to monitor for with an infrastructure monitoring tool, because we tend to be concerned with a current status or a specific event. But the SIEM functionality available within Log Analytics will let you look at repeated events and trends and so on, identify patterns, and also look for vulnerable products and different versions, operating systems, etc., which again I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. We're also asking the question of why. So why have things happened? That's really about providing context for things that might have gone wrong or something that we're concerned about. So rather than just having an alert that says, yeah, this particular thing has happened, somebody's maybe failed to log into a machine, got a password wrong or something similar, I might care about why that's happened. Is it a brute force attack? Has it happened 10 times in the last 15 minutes? Has it happened 100 times in the last day? Is it always the same user? So looking in a little bit more detail about what caused that event and giving some context, the events that happened before and after it, rather than just a standalone failure or alert. And of course, this is about bringing data from multiple sources. Log files are the most obvious, but there are plenty of other sources of this information. So in terms of the product itself, Opsview Log Analytics, it's based on Elastic Stack. So anybody that's familiar with Elastic Stack already will be pretty familiar with a lot of the user interface and functionality. And if you've actually got this in place already, then moving from Elastic Stack to Log Analytics is very straightforward, because we can use the same agents and methods of sending data into Log Analytics that you're already using with Elastic Stack. So a nice, easy switch. But it also gives you the advantage of the support and the extra functionality that we've built into it. The intention is to make it a central system, so all of your different log types, all the different event information is coming through in different streams, all to one central place, all text messages effectively, so metrics and text messages that we can then filter and sort. And as you can see in the screenshot on the right there, you can see various different visualizations that are available for that. And this is intended to scale, just like Opsview Monitor, Opsview Cloud, to a significant volume of data, which again we'll talk a little bit more about. But the idea is that you can send hundreds of thousands of metrics and log entries and so on, and bring that all together in a meaningful way, aggregate it very easily, but then drill down to the detail when you need to. We've got a couple of examples down at the bottom there, or quite a few examples of different possible sources of information. So it could be things like Windows events from the event log, application log files, so it could be flat files on disk, could be things that are routed through a syslog daemon running on a server, could be custom scripting, could be post to an HTTP API, which is available, various other connectors, things like Kafka and other MQ buses. So a whole range of different data sources there, and all of those are supported and will allow you to bring data into one place and, as I say, correlate and make more sense of that information. So in terms of use cases, as I say, correlations are a key part of this, but also reducing data costs. So you may already have various systems in place delivering some or all of this functionality. Certainly some of the competitive tools, the obvious one perhaps being Splunk. You can pay a significant amount for data ingestion, and most products seem to charge by the amount of data you're ingesting. Our model is a little bit different to that, and I think you'll find extremely cost effective when compared to the large players in particular, like Splunk. So it's a good way of reducing your costs in terms of licensing, but also we've got some compression built in, which will reduce the amount of storage that's required for your logs, and so that can reduce your infrastructure costs for storing logs for whatever retention period you need as well. And can help you with your security and compliance. So not only can we detect security events, but we can also look for various vulnerabilities and so on. On that subject of SIEM, so Security Information Event Management, there's a variety of different ways that we can help you here. So on top of Elastic Stack, we've built in Wazir, which I'll show you in the demo. And that is all about security information, identifying vulnerabilities, identifying events which could point to an attack or whatever it might be. So we can identify lots of different issues that might have occurred and help you prove that you are compliant, or identify systems that are not compliant in your environment and get those resolved. Yeah, I'll take you through that in the demo. So combining the two tools together, Opsview Monitor, Opsview Cloud, and Opsview Log Analytics, it is a separate product, so it's not an extra module or whatever built into our existing product. It is a standalone tool, but what we've done is tied that together, because of course ideally you'll have a single pane of glass where you get all of your events, and your operations teams can look at that single UI, or you can feed that through to your alerting tools like ServiceNow if you've got ITSM tools in place. So it's key that we have data flow between the two systems. So what we've done is integrated the two together to send all the data from Opsview Monitor or Opsview Cloud into Opsview Log Analytics if you wish. So you can have all of your results also stored in the log tool, which will allow you to analyze it in different ways to the way you already do in the product today. You can do some more correlation there, because of course you then have data from your logs as well as data from the monitoring tool. And if you do identify any issues, we can send those back as alerts into Opsview Monitor, Opsview Cloud, and that will surface those alongside your other checks and polling and so on that's going on already in the tool there. So this allows you to have that single pane of glass for your day-to-day monitoring, but if you do need to drill down and see more detail, if perhaps you get a log alert that's surfaced in Opsview Monitor, you can then drill down and find out exactly what's going on, see the context and more detail in Log Analytics. In terms of what that looks like, here's a rather small screenshot showing you a couple of normal checks, if you like, a couple of polling checks that you may well have in place already in Opsview Monitor. So we've got just a basic ICMP check, the connectivity check, maybe doing an agent-based check, so looking at CPU statistics on a Linux server. And then we've also got a separate check here for security alerts. So you may have multiple checks here for different types of alert that come from Log Analytics. That will allow you to split things up and send those alerts to different people. So perhaps security alerts will go to one recipient, maybe performance alerts will go somewhere else. So you can split those up as you need to. But this will give you that quick summary of, okay, we've detected here a brute force attack on SSH. What I'll do now is I'll go and dig into my logs and find out exactly what's going on, which users are being targeted, which systems are being targeted, and so on. So that allows you to do that drill down. Just a quick word on architecture. So it is a pretty straightforward architecture for the product. It has a web user interface, as you will, I'm sure, be aware already. So that's primarily Kibana-based, and that then ties in with the way you access your Opsview Monitor system or Opsview Cloud system today. So it can be HTTPS and integrate with single sign-on and so on. And then behind that web interface sits one or more data nodes. So the simplest deployment is just a single data node. So the interface and the data node can all be in one place. So the entire purple box that you can see there would be a single system. But for scalability and availability, we can also add additional data nodes. Typically, you'd go from 1 to 3 to provide proper high availability, but you can continue to expand the data nodes beyond that to scale as far as you need to. You can also see the data being fed in at the bottom there, so either directly through syslog into Logstash or through the various Beats agents that I mentioned earlier. So that will allow you to pick up the data from things like your Windows event logs, from flat files, from various other data sources, and bring them all together in one place. So the way we license this is based on the number of data nodes. So I mentioned earlier that you should find this is very cost effective compared to other solutions, and that's because we do license based on the data node rather than the volume of data. So for a start, you only need a rough idea of how much data you're expecting to receive to know which sort of size system you're going to need, but if that fluctuates up or down, then your costs won't change, so it's very predictable in advance. And we've found already that a lot of our customers will fit into the single data node sizing, so maybe we'll need just a very simple deployment, and that can get you up and running very quickly and add a lot of value, as I say, very cost effective compared to alternatives. If you do need to scale that a bit further, then as I say, you jump up to 3 nodes rather than 2, and that will give you proper high availability as well as scalability. And you can see there with the stats, we're jumping from up to 5,000 events per second to more than that, and more than 100 gigabytes per day, and keeping data for at least 6 months. Many customers keeping data for a lot longer than that with the availability, and also improved performance as well. By adding more data nodes, we can distribute searches when you're filtering in the UI. Again, I'll show you that in the product in a second, but because that's distributed, you'll get those results back that bit quicker, even with a large data set. So everything scales really nicely. So it's all very well talking about this. I'm sure you'd like to see the product itself. So let me take you through a couple of systems that I've got here actually, and show you where the data is coming from and how we can filter it and so on. So the system that we're looking at here is a server that's got a number of different data sources fed into it. The one that we're looking at in this particular Discover view, so this is a sort of browse view to see all the different log information. This is showing us win log beat information, so data that's come from Windows event log from multiple systems. I'll get a little chart at the top to show me the number of entries over time, so I can see where I might have had a sudden spike in the number of events coming through, and I can filter my views to see different time periods, whether I want the last few hours, days, weeks, etc. So I can tweak that view as needed, and that will then update the visualizations beneath. We've got individual entries below that showing you each line here is an individual entry from the Windows event log. I can see a summary, or I can expand that to get more data and see exactly what was going on with that one event. If there's something here that's of interest, perhaps I want to filter the view to only show me problems that have occurred with this process or with this particular event ID. So I can go to a process ID here and say I'd like to filter for this particular value, and that will immediately update the view and will only show me entries that have that particular process ID. So nice quick way of filtering it down. We've got several other sources of data that are fed into this system. Let me just remove that filter. So I can change this data and say, actually, I would like to see data coming from syslog. Again, keeping the time period at the top here, but I can change that as needed. So standard syslog entries. So you'll see different fields here, but again, the same filtering will apply. So I can filter to a given host or a given protocol, and that will allow me to quickly find the information that I'm looking for. Perhaps some particular problem has occurred with one host or one type of connection, and I can quickly filter down and see exactly what was going on around that time. One other area that I'll mention while I'm here is we've got OP5 performance logs. So as you may or may not be aware, ITRS in the portfolio has got another monitoring product called OP5, similar in heritage to Opsview Monitor, Opsview Cloud. So that has the ability to send data in here just like we do. So you'll be familiar with the Nagios style checks and results. You can see the performance data here for a particular check. And get various other information about the host and so on. So that shows you that we can send data through from a variety of different monitoring tools. But if I take you over to our other system here, this one's got data in from Opsview as well. So if I filter by Opsview results, you can see those results from the last 3 hours. And again, I can expand those. This is being sent from our results exporter. Hopefully some of you are using this already to integrate with other tools in your environment, but results exporter can stream all the results, all the metrics and so on into this tool. And again, we can filter this as needed. So I could filter by all the checks that are in this state, which in this case is okay. If I found some critical alerts, I could filter by those, by the check type and so on. So again, quick way to filter and discover data nice and quickly. So the Discover view is really useful for finding context and getting lots of detail about what was going on, particularly if I know what I'm looking for. But another thing that is very useful for visualizing what's going on is the dashboards. So we offer a number of these pre-configured out the box, but of course you're free to create your own as well. This particular Linux dashboard is going to show me alerts from various different systems. We've got that split into different visualizations. So we've got medium severity alerts and high severity alerts on the right-hand side there. So at a glance, I can scroll through these and see which systems are affected by different criticality of alert. And I can see what has caused that to be triggered. Why is that an alert from the rule description here? So you can see we've got various CVEs that have been identified as affecting some hosts in the environment. So I can very quickly see which hosts are at risk, which ones might need patching, updating, and so on. And that complements the Wazir integration, which, as I say, I'll show you in a moment. And that allows you to quickly remediate issues and show that you're compliant in the environment as well. One other thing that I'd like to show you on this system is the net flow data. So as I mentioned, we've got that in Opsview Monitor, Opsview Cloud as well through the Network Analyzer module. But you can also send your net flow data through to Log Analytics. So if I take perhaps the overview dashboard here, you'll be able to see flow data between different hosts on the network with quite a nice visualization here. So I can immediately see from the IP addresses on either side the big talkers, if you like, on the network. So from this particular one, I can identify that there's a lot of traffic going to one of Google's DNS servers. So it's pretty likely that the IP on the left-hand side is one of my internal DNS servers that's doing all the external resolutions, but perhaps that's unexpected. Perhaps it shouldn't be generating that much traffic, so that might be a problem that I want to investigate. Or perhaps I am interested in everything that's talking to 8.8.8.8, so I can put that in the filter at the top. That will immediately update all the visualizations, so I can see the various different IPs that are talking to that one host. So that gives me that extra insight into what's causing this traffic. And again, all the other visualizations are now filtered by that traffic. Take that one out. There we go. Returns to normal. I can see all the traffic again, and you can see various different graphs, top bytes by destination, by source, host count, etc. So a number of different visualizations available there, splits by protocol, and so on. So a really nice complement to the data that you get in your dashboards in Opsview Monitor as well. So two final areas that I'd like to look at. One is around alerting. So I mentioned earlier that you might want to feed data back into Opsview Monitor in order to surface alerts that have been identified through logs rather than through other monitoring. So that can be done through the alerts module. The idea behind this is we can create a set of rules which say if something occurs with a particular regular expression, or it occurs a certain amount of times within a certain time period, we'll then take some action, which in this case is raising an alert. This system here has just a single alert configured at the moment, but you can have as many as you wish, and we can help you in building ones that will be meaningful to you and help in your environment. This one is looking for repeated failures of SSH logins. I think I've actually got this configured just to look for one single occurrence at the moment. But each rule takes a small amount of YAML. So in this case, we're doing a query looking for failed password within syslog. And if we do identify that, then we're going to send the SSH login failures detected message through to your Opsview system. And that way we'll surface that alert within just a few moments of it occurring, allow you to investigate. But I can tune this to say, don't alert unless you've had a certain number within a certain time period to reduce those false positives. Because unfortunately, from time to time, everyone enters their password incorrectly. But a really key part of the integration, and as I say, that helps create that single pane of glass view in the Opsview product. So the final area that I'm going to touch on is the seam functionality. So the Wazir integration basically builds upon the data that you've already collected. So you've already got all your different syslog and Windows event log and so on sending to one particular location. and that can then be used to pull out the security information. So we can look at a log entry and say, oh, I can see this particular daemon started up and it's logged its version number, and as a result I know that that version number of that product is vulnerable to these CVEs or whatever it might be. So basically we provide a set of rules that help you identify the things that might be problems. In this case, we're looking at a PCI view. There's lots of different views. In fact, if I take you to the overview here, you'll see various different ways that we can tackle that information. So specifically around regulatory compliance, I'm sure all of you will have to deal with GDPR or similar, PCI for some of you, HIPAA for many of you in the US as well. So lots of different options available to you there. But we were looking at the PCI view as an example. Again, lots of visualizations to allow you to really make sense of the data that's being received. So we can look at the top offenders, if you like, the hosts that have the greatest number of violations of a policy or vulnerabilities, particular CVEs. So we can split that out by tables and so on. But just like we did with other views, I could then maybe filter this to a particular part of the PCI standard, the PCI requirements, and that will then filter all these visualizations to only show me things that deal with 11.2.1 of PCI. And when I look at the alert summary that I've got down here, I can see a whole bunch of CVEs on this particular machine. So one machine affected there. I can grab the CVE number out of there, look it up in the CVE database, and that will then tell me exactly what the problem is and whether or not a patch is available. Do I need to upgrade packages on that OS? So that will give me some quick insight into what I need to do to get a problem resolved. We've also got a handy count there as well, so I can see the number of times that that particular vulnerability has appeared. So it's a really useful tool to give you that extra insight. You've already got the data there being aggregated and being stored. So this is just building upon that, going into more depth and pulling out extra insight, which should enable you and your security teams to find problems and resolve them much more quickly. Okay, so those are the areas that I wanted to run through today. I'll take a look at any questions that have come through. I think we've got a couple here, so I'll run through those. If you do have any questions from what you've seen today, as I say, please do ask those through the chat. Happy to answer those if I can. Anything that we don't get to today, we'll take away and come back to you on.